Welcome to All the Gear But No Idea, the South Australian fishing podcast hosted by Rohdey and Diz. The boys will share their tall tales of the one that got away, as well as some regular segments they know all you fishing tragics will enjoy.
G'day and welcome to All the Gear But No Idea, the South Australian fishing podcast. Dizzy, how are you, mate?
I'm fantastic, Rohdey. Very premier podcast this is with fancy gear and all the likes. I'm sure our listeners noted the better sound quality last episode.
Yes, Diz, we've had some good feedback, but let's not get into the oranges too quickly. Let's talk about our guest, Diz. We've got Lucas from Adelaide Mobile Trailer Services.
Yes, Lucas is. We're really looking forward to having a chat with him. It's going to be something that, look, I don't know that many fishing podcasts would touch on this sort of thing, and it's a very important part of what we do, particularly if you're into boat fishing. You want to make sure your trailer's well looked after. So we look forward to having a chat with Lucas later on. But let's get into oranges and lemons, Rohdey. I've touched on an orange for this week, but tell the listeners what it is.
It is the new microphone, the new Rode sound system, the mixer, the microphones, the whole setup is going beautifully, Diz. It's user-friendly and the sound quality is great.
Yes, sound quality is great. Very surprisingly, you can do two things at once. So you seem to be able to handle the mixer while I handle the banter and all the important topics.
That's right, Diz. That's like when we go fishing and I handle the fish and you do nothing else.
Loose chat. Righto, Rohdey. Well, my orange has been the second lot of beanies have hit the shores, so to speak, and we've got them in our possession. So great news for those who missed out on the first run because they sold extremely quickly. So for anybody out there who's struggling in the hair department a bit like Bald Man, or you've got a cold noggin at this time of year, make sure you get in touch with us because we've got them available now.
And today is absolute prime beanie weather.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Rohdey, let's get into our lemons. What have you got for us?
Diz, I'm going to just go a full-blown lack of sleep, a combination of Lil teething and learning to roll and just rolling onto her tummy, onto her back, onto her tummy, onto her back is just keeping her up all night.
That's the worst.
So if I've got a short fuse with you today, Diz, you'll know why.
You have got a short fuse. You got a short fuse at the best of times, mate. So I'm not looking forward to that. My lemon, definitely the lack of fishing for us.
We talk a big game about winter whiting specialists, and we delivered last year. We went out regularly.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of the weather, babies, work. It's a few events. A few times we've had a weekend free, and then there's like one thing bang in the middle.
Yeah, there has been. And yeah, look, I think sometimes when we've had a bad week and hardly been home, the partners are sort of just, no, you need to be on the tools, all this crap. Get us out fishing.
You're a disgrace.
Sick of it.
You're a disgrace.
I want to be out fishing, getting a few kidney slappers.
All right, Diz, let's keep moving. What about the merch? Where can they get the beanies?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, Rohdey, the beanies are available. So $25 for a beanie. Very good price.
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah,
very
good quality.
You don't normally see a beanie for $25. I think if you were in the market for a premium beanie like this, you're probably more looking at 35 or 40. So that's a definite positive, and we certainly don't lack on the quality. Cheetah Teamwear, shout out.
They're very good, very good.
Yeah, they've done a great job. And look, let's not forget about the caps. There's still a few grey, handful of navy ones floating around. Don't know. You might be thinking summer. You might be thinking like you're getting ready for a few warm days. Certainly this week, you probably wouldn't need a cap, but it won't be too long before we start getting some nicer days, I would have thought.
So, yeah, hit us up on your Facebook, your Instagrams. Hit us with a little direct message if you'd like some.
Yeah, absolutely, Rohdey. Okay, Rohdey, now we're very interested in hearing from you because unfortunately work got in the way of me heading to the RecFish SA Fishing Forum, but you managed to get there. And this is obviously a very widely discussed and interested group of rec fishermen and fishing women that are keen to hear from these bodies around what their plan is for rec fishing across our state. So tell the listeners, give them a few highlights. You were jotting down some notes. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it is. So I was just showing you my notes on my phone, and it does look like I took the official minutes of the meeting. I took down every little minor detail ready to bring to all the listeners. But I'll just give you a quick rundown, Diz. So it started with Katrine Hildyard, if I pronounce that right, Diz.
Yeah, that sounds right. It is Katrine. So member for Raynell down in the great Southern Heartland.
So, yeah, Diz, she was there live and spoke about better sharing of the data, which sounds promising, and better channels for communication. She promised that the O'Sullivan's Beach boat ramp would be the first redevelopment, the first project in the fishing area, which was, I think, a positive, but people would like that to sort of start ASAP. She talked about a strategy that will be out by the end of 2024, which to me is a while off, but we'll see what happens with that. Talked about increasing and diversifying fishing participation for kids and women, and also talked about $200K of funding through the Active Clubs funding, which would open in September exclusively to fishing club grants. So that's now under that new classification that I think they promised in the election lead up about fishing now becoming categorised as a recreation.
Yeah. Recognised as a sport, I think.
So I think that's how it's sort of come about, where that funding through the Active Club grants, I think it comes from, Diz.
Yeah, which is really good because, there's a lot of different clubs that will now be able to access some of that funding to, improve their reach or improve their facilities or whatever it might be, that just gets more people involved in RecFish, which is ultimately only going to be a good thing.
Yeah, it is. So that was sort of the takeaway from Katrine. Then Claire Scriven, who actually had COVID, she had a video presentation, obviously wasn't allowed out of the house. So she wasn't there live, which was a bit disappointing, but can't do much about that, can you? She talked about the independent voice being RecFish and how that's a positive. Talked about, again, better communication on how and why decisions are made. So that was a bit of a common thread that both of the politicians mentioned. And also talked about the split governments between regional development and sport and rec. So hers was probably a little bit shorter, being a video link, and maybe a bit harder for any sort of interaction. So that was a brief overview from Claire.
Yeah, well, I mean, good to hear anyway that they're keen on improving communication, because I think communication and information, or lack thereof sometimes, is what does frustrate the RecFish community, the recreational fishing community. Would you agree?
I would, Diz, and the only thing I would say about those two politicians that came on is we'll see it when we believe it. We'll believe it when we see it, won't we, Diz?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, leading up to elections, there's obviously a lot of promises, a lot of we'll do this, we'll do that. Let's wait and see. The proof's in the pudding, as they say.
And the only other sort of thing I did hear mentioned after the presentation was it would have been good to get some sort of a timeline on the O'Sullivan's Beach boat ramp.
Yes, well, that'd be fair enough. That's been something that's been discussed for a very long period of time. So, we'll wait and see what happens there. But surely that been discussed enough. A lot of interested parties there. An absolute no-brainer. A very widely used ramp, really not far from Metro Adelaide. So one that needs to be pushed through very quickly, I would have thought.
That's it, Diz. And next to present was Mike Steer, who's the Sardi Research Director. Now, this was largely about the snapper stocks, which I suppose is what everyone wants to know at the moment. He sort of presented about the lifespan of snapper and how they grow and move around the gulfs and things like that. Talked about how the southeast stocks are linked to the Victoria fishery, not the gulfs of South Australia, and sort of why that's classed as a separate fishery, which was quite interesting. He did give an overview on how they estimate the biomass and how they can, they do that sampling where they drag the big net through the water, take up all the plankton, and then they put like a dye in it, and that sort of gels to the snapper eggs and nothing else, and that's how they can identify how many snapper eggs per, gigalitre of water or whatever it is to get a population. Okay. Which I think everyone's a little bit dubious about. That has probably over the years been the bit that people think, how can you know what the snapper stocks are?
Yeah, interesting.
So anyway, that was interesting, Diz, but also talked about how they, can look at the otoliths of the snapper to get ages of them.
Right. What's an otolith?
They're those ear bones.
Okay, interesting.
Geez, you're uneducated. Anyway, he talked about there being strong growth years when they look at these otoliths in 1991, 1997 and 1999, and then talked about there being no strong years since. So I think that was part of the theory behind the ban, which, I suppose that makes sense. Diz?
I guess it does.
Anyway, he also mentioned about the the fingerlings they grew and put into the Gulfs last year, and also talked about how those ones the snapper that they raised at West Beach, they have the otoliths stained with a dye, which means that in the future when they go to the fish markets or whatever, or they do their own research, they can tell whether these fish were from those lot of fingerlings that they grew at West Beach, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But he did say at the moment they've got no way of knowing the survival of these fingerlings until they grow to a size of, eating size.
Yeah, well, how do they know? Have they done this before?
Well, look, I don't know, Diz. He didn't go into that.
Yeah, so, what if the stain wears off?
Well, he really didn't know how many of those are still kicking around and had no way of estimating.
I'd like to know how much that project costs, because that could just be a complete and utter waste of time and money.
Could just be feeding the whiting, really.
Could be.
Anyway, Diz, they are doing another study on the post-release survival, so talking about different size snapper and what depth they're caught from, how they go releasing.
Yeah. Bit of chat about release weights.
There was a few pictures of release weights, probably from Savage Tackle, I'd imagine.
Well, they're the best.
Anyway, they I think that's about a year off that study.
Okay, there you go.
And
so they're busy.
They're busy, but the main thing that I suppose people wanted to know was the timeline.
Yeah, of course.
And so what they've said is they've collected all their data. They're now analysing the data.
Yeah.
And a report is due, and the timeline was a bit vague on this PowerPoint. It said October to December.
Oh, well, if it's planned to be open in January.
Yeah, so the report isn't coming out until potentially December, and that's not actually a decision. That's just a report that the decision will be based on.
I was going to say that report would want to come out in October for it to be opened in January as planned.
So it's a pretty quick turnaround, is all I'm saying.
Oh, gee whiz.
And they certainly, will go on
to... You basically rule that out opening early then.
Well, it's not opening early, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So we will go into some of the questions that were asked, but, they in the question time, they certainly didn't rule out the ban continuing.
Oh, wow.
So
there you go.
Anyway, Diz, that was interesting. Then we moved on to Andrew Harris, who's the deputy chair of RecFish, who presented the results of that survey, Diz.
Okay.
They had 549 responses. Interestingly, only 28 were female, Diz.
What did they talk about what they were expecting?
In terms of numbers? No, they didn't mention it. Did not mention it.
Okay. I would have thought that their reach might have gone a bit further than 549.
Certainly from what I've read on social media, people are pretty disappointed with that number, particularly when they keep talking about 277,000 recreational fisher people in South Australia. As a percentage, I'd say that's quite low.
Oh, it's extremely low.
The other interesting thing, so we'll quickly go through the results just as a bit of a summary.
Yes.
One of the questions was, how many days have you gone fishing in the last year? Of which 55% said they fish more than 20 times, which was a big majority. So I would have thought that this survey really targets those diehards that go out a lot.
Yeah, but if there's 277,000, 549 replied, and of that 50%, so 250 odd, really only fish more than 20 times a year.
Yeah, I suppose, but it just, there's not, there's only...
So then of that 50%, they're I'd say a diehard would be, fishing every fortnight, I'd say.
Yeah, so that's roughly...
more than 20 times.
Yep.
But less than that, if you're fishing once every 3 months, then you're definitely not a diehard.
No, that's what I mean is, so 4.7% of responders only fish between 1 and 4 times per year. So you would say that those, they fish once in the school holidays, once in summer, and that's it. They're not responding to this sort of survey. And you'd think those sort of fisher people sort of make up probably the majority of the 277,000.
Yeah, that's right.
So it is certainly skewed towards the more diehard fisher people.
Yep, fair enough. What else came out of the report, Rohdey? You plucked the highlights?
Yeah, just quickly, Diz, because we are going to we have shared the link to this on our Facebook. But a couple of highlights were that the preferences from the recreational anglers were around reducing commercial netting and long lining, building fishing infrastructure like fishing platforms, returning reservoir permit fees to RecFish. So they were probably the main points to come that had a majority of the preferences. The question around the access and infrastructure question was a pretty even spread. And yeah, like I say, we're not going to go into too much depth about that because we have shared that on our Facebook. And we're also going to have a chat in greater detail about this survey and some of the results with Andrew Harris in our next episode. Diz, let's move on to the questions because that was probably what people wanted to take their opportunity to get things off their chest.
Yep.
And the first one that came up was the Victor Harbour boat ramp.
Okay, yes.
And so a lot of these were directed, a lot of them went to Professor Gavin Begg, who's the Executive Director of PIRSA, Fisheries and Aquaculture. He really came into his own when it came to the questions, Diz. He copped a lot of heat. So for the Victor Harbour boat ramp, he basically said push it to DPTI, Department of Transport.
Yeah, right.
So he handballed that one. A bit of a push for wash facilities at boat ramps, and that was similarly probably handballed. Big questions.
You can forget your wash facilities at the boat ramp at Victor Harbour. Like, they have hard enough time getting people to get into the bloody ramp. That'd be more of a priority is getting people off that massive line in the street.
Yeah, Diz, I'd probably agree.
Parking.
Yeah. Next question was around snapper stocks. Really didn't give much away. Basically said that it'll be discussed with RecFish before any announcements made. So RecFish, I think, has a seat on that Snapper Management Advisory Committee, but certainly didn't rule out the option to continue the ban if the stocks are still categorised as depleted. Next one is that this got a big round of applause actually. Kim Manning, former guest of the show, he brought up about rec fishing licences. Basically, the response to that was the current position is no licence. Andrew Harris, who's the vice chair, who we're actually going to get on the podcast shortly, Diz, he did sort of back that up and said if this is a popular view of the recos, then RecFish SA will look into this and give info or ideas to the government. There was a bit of a statement made by one of the guests at the forum saying that government has said rec fishing licence isn't on the table. RecFish need to tell them it should be on the table.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, I probably would agree with that idea. My concern, obviously, is if they're getting 550 people to reply to a survey and there's 277,000 people and you can't even get people to tell the government as a voice, we need this for multiple different reasons, then they won't listen because they're only interested in getting people's votes.
Exactly right, Diz, and that was certainly a strong feeling in the room. That room was certainly very pro-licence, but as I say, I don't think those that fish once every blue moon are pro-licence. So it just depends. As I think someone said on the night, are you trying to target the diehard fishos, or which make up a very small percentage as a whole, or are you trying to win votes by going for the majority of people, which are those ones that fish every now and then?
It's hard, isn't it?
So there was also a fair bit of heat about the allocations of snapper, talking about back in the day it used to be 37%, I think, went to recreational fishos. That's now down to 8% for the recos and 10% of the charters. So basically saying that that's not fair.
Well, yeah, you definitely agree with that, wouldn't you?
And certainly the unofficial number that the crowd was throwing out there was 40%.
Right.
That's what they feel it should be. But where that comes from, I think that's probably based off that 37% in the past.
Yeah.
So that was another popular statement, Diz.
Okay. Got a round of applause?
Did. And I suppose the overall feeling, so when these questions were coming in, sort of RecFish and Andrew Harris sort of had a bit of an opinion on a lot of them. And what they were basically saying is they were pushing that everyone in that room and everyone in the wider fishing community needs to get behind them and give us a united voice. So, in the past, there's been a lot of infighting, a lot of us versus them versus someone else. But, the MARFAC was a part of that. But he's basically saying, and RecFish is basically saying, that in these big discussions, if we don't sort of get behind RecFish, who are the independent voice, we're not going to get anywhere. And the quote was, we will be coming to Gavin and PIRSA about the snapper stocks. So if they're not happy, they are going to push back and they are going to hopefully stand up for what we all want, but they're saying that everyone's got to back them in.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. I mean, we do need to, whether it's, I don't care who it is, to be perfectly honest, but I want people speaking to government and demanding things on behalf of all of the RecFishers.
Exactly right, Diz. And the only other thing, there were plenty more questions, but the last thing I will mention is there was a question about fisheries officers. And the statement from PIRSA was that there is about 40 fisheries officers about the state, plus about 50 to 70 of those fish care volunteers. Basically, Gavin said there's not going to be an influx of money for more fisheries officers, so he ruled that out. And he basically encouraged people to dob in on Fish Watch. So he basically said, if you see something going on dodgy down at West Lakes, call up. And he said it doesn't mean they're going to get there straight away, but at least they'll be able to get a bit of a trend. And I'm not sure people were that happy with that response.
Why would they be? I mean, it's just ridiculous. I just can't, there'd be so much dodgy stuff going on out there. Like, they need more patrol at ramps, busy. I'm not saying, go and plonk them in at the least busiest ramp, but really, we hardly ever see people monitoring catch.
No, it's pretty rare, really, isn't it?
I just, crazy.
And there will be a wider survey that's gonna. I think they've said something about iPads in tackle stores, so they're going to go around to some of the independent tackle stores, put an iPad in there, and that's going to be a more open-ended survey with space for you to put in your own ideas.
Okay, that's all right.
So, Diz, that's my wrap of the night.
Jeez, Rohdey, well done, mate. Good minutes.
So we did share that report that I fumbled my way through trying to explain the evenness of all the responses, but. Jump on the Facebook and you'll be able to find the link to that and you can interpret that for yourself.
Yeah, jump on there. I think it's worth a look, especially if you actually did the survey.
Certainly, Diz. Now, let's keep moving. We do have a little bit of other news. I know that was the big topic, but we will keep moving onto the other news items, Diz.
Yes, Rohdey. Victoria Fisheries, we talked about just earlier about more patrolling of catch and people doing the wrong thing. The Victorian Fisheries have caught someone with 480 bream.
That's a fair haul, isn't it, Diz?
That is an absolute disgrace, and I hope they throw the book at that person, whoever it might be, because that is a disgrace. So clearly they're selling it to someone.
Well, they must be. 4 people are facing court after being caught by Melbourne fisheries officers. They'd launched from Werribee South and they were using a trammel net and often operating it without a light. So that's dangerous, Diz.
Of course it is.
And the haul weighed about 180 kilos and it was found by officers in 2 large fish bins throughout the floor of the boat, along with 6 trammel nets that measured between 24 and 102 metres.
Wow. It's just astonishing.
That's pretty amazing, Diz. So it'll be interesting to see what the Vic authorities hit them with.
Yeah, well, hopefully a lot. Rohdey, giant tuna found dead at Coffin Bay. This was doing the rounds on Facebook. Pretty interesting photo, that, because it was a monster.
So it says here 2.5 metres, Diz.
Yeah. Did they give an estimated weight? I can't remember.
Well, I'm reading this ABC News article and it says it was initially estimated at 90 kilos. However, he later confirmed it would have been double that, weighing about 180 kilos.
Oh, gee whiz.
And Mr. Slater, who found the thing, Kane Slater, was out fishing with his kids and they thought it was a dolphin.
Yeah, well, I mean, fish that big, don't blame, especially from afar. Big barrel-looking thing, that, so... Yeah, crazy. Wonder whether, did anyone get their hands on it, like Sardi or someone, to do some research on it?
I'm not sure, Diz. You'd hope they would, but interesting to know how it got there.
Yeah, very interesting. But, I think we're going to see more of this, Rohdey, some interesting trends develop and, there'll be more random fish caught in different locations, more people going out, more sharing across social media, these sorts of things. We're going to see more of it. And
also the timing of it's interesting, Diz. Obviously, the tuna normally around there during the summertime.
Yeah, tuna around there in the summertime. Obviously, the barrels are firing down at Port Mac.
It's a long way from Port Mac, though.
It is a long way from Port Mac, but the barrels are obviously swimming in that part of the world. They're also swimming in Tassie. They're getting them over there.
Long way from Tassie too, Diz.
But they can swim.
They can.
They can swim, believe it or not.
All right, Diz, one more bit of news I got for you.
Port Giles Jetty has been closed for maintenance.
Yeah, so that's August 1 until September 1.
Okay, yeah, a month. Yeah.
So don't try and go fishing off the jetty down at Port Giles.
Nah, don't even bother. Don't even bother about it. Rohdey, that's been a good news segment. We can't thank you enough for getting along to the RecFish Forum to take the minutes. Well done. Did they pay you?
They should have paid me.
Well played.
And if anyone's got any feedback who went to the night, what did you think? What did you think of the question and answer, which I personally thought was the most interesting part of the night? Make sure you share it with us on Facebook. Give us a comment. Give us a message. We want to know what you're all thinking, guys.
Yeah, please do. Let us know your thoughts. Good to get an update, though, from you, mate. Some people like myself might not have been able to get down work commitments, that sort of thing. So thanks for the wrap. Now let's get Lucas from Adelaide Mobile Trailer Services on the line. Rohdey, very lucky to be joined today by Lucas from Adelaide Mobile Trailer Services. Lucas, thanks for coming on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, guys.
Great to have you on board, Lucas, and we're looking forward to talking about all things trailers shortly. But first off, we want to talk about your own fishing experiences. I think you said you fished a little bit as a youngster.
Yeah, look, I really enjoyed it as a kid because, you'd catch some small fish and they'd look bloody huge because you're a little fella. But, nothing in recent years, really, but I'd love to get back into it, that's for sure.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. It's just be careful. Once you get that bug, there's no turning back. It's a fair distraction once you get into it.
I'll have to quit my job and live on a boat somewhere, probably. But
We'll keep our eyes out for someone with a bit of fishing nous to point you in the right direction, because it's certainly not us, Lucas.
We'll try anyways, mate. We'll try anyways.
That's it. Lucas, tell us about your business, Adelaide Mobile Trailer Services. What do you get up to?
So essentially, the idea behind the business is that should a trailer break somewhere, it's hard to then get it somewhere else to get it fixed. So you're either looking to put it on a tow truck, and that's an extra expense, or you get someone like me out that can fix it on site, and you're back on the road and happy days, really. So people like tradies that don't want to have a day off work with their trailer, or for you guys, you have a boat trailer stuck on a ramp somewhere, you can get it fixed then and there, and you're not looking to tow it somewhere.
Certainly convenient. It must save people a lot of hassle and time and, money getting it to places. So it's a really smart idea there, Lucas.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. It's all about customer service really as well. Like you said, it's less hassle, and that's sort of the big thing.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, this day and age, everyone's looking to save a bit of time. Convenience is everything these days. So I'm sure there's plenty of happy customers.
Yeah, well, that's always the aim. Everyone's time poor at the moment, and no one needs any more headaches. There's enough of those with the pandemic going around. So now it's about easing everything, I suppose.
And Lucas, so tell us what you do. So obviously, if my trailer breaks on the boat ramp, you'll come and fix it, but you'll also do like a yearly or a service. Is that something else you offer?
Yeah, it certainly is. So I suppose probably my main business is actually just general servicing. So you'd be surprised. Not that many trailers actually break because a lot of people care about their things, so they do actually get them serviced. So probably, the main business is doing a general service. A lot of that is yearly. Some tradies like to get it done every 6 months or similar. Usually for tradies, because they're towing it so often, they'll do it as frequently as they get their car service because their trailer's usually doing the same kilometres.
And what does that involve, Lucas? What do you do on a standard service?
So a standard service, it covers pretty much everything, all the way from the coupling to the tail lights. So I'll do a coupling adjustment, grease up an override, check out the brakes, repack the bearings, tension the bearings, check, do your wheel nut torques correctly, check tyre pressures. It's kind of a full-blown check over, really. Full nut and bolt check to make sure your suspension's all tight and U-bolts are tight. It's the full kit and caboodle, really.
That's really good, mate. That's exactly what you need. There's nothing worse than packing up your stuff, ready to go away, or if you're waking up in the morning to get to work and your bloody trailer shits itself, that's horrible. So,
of course.
I think you're right, mate. Making sure you look after your gear is definitely an important part of everything we do.
Oh, definitely. Well, like I said, for tradies, it's their source of income. For you guys, it's your hobby. You don't want to have a great weekend planned and then 100 metres down the road a wheel falls off your trailer and your whole weekend's ruined.
And Lucas, as a general rule, how often would you recommend people get their trailer serviced?
That's a great question. So if you're using it fairly frequently, so a good example again being the tradies, if it's behind their car every day, I'd say do it as often as you're servicing your car. But for someone who's using it infrequently, like a boat trailer, I'd say every 12 months, just because if you're going in salt water, it can have detrimental effects on a lot of things. And for a trailer that hasn't been checked out before, if you've got, say, the wrong seals in your hubs or something like that, the salt water can creep in and it can degrade the grease or wipe out your bearings. So I would say, if when you first get a trailer, get it checked over, make sure it's got the right gear on it, the right grease, the right bearings, the right seals. And then from then on, ask the question, how often should I be doing it? Explain to the service person, the mechanic, what sort of use you're doing with that trailer, and they'll be able to identify how often you should be able to get it serviced. So for you guys who are probably using it more frequently, I'd say 6 to 12 months, depending on what kind of water you're putting the trailer in.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. That's really good advice, and you're not wrong. Once you're dumping those trailers into salt water in and out, corrosion starts to creep in, and all of a sudden you've got your problem on your hands. I was going to ask you, do you find that a lot of sort of factory trailers don't come equipped with the right gear from day one? Is there upgrades and things that people should be thinking about with particular trailers from day one, or are they all pretty good?
Trailers are one of those brilliant examples of you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So a lot of your higher end stuff, they'll really focus on the little details to make sure everything is like Mickey Mouse and perfect. Whereas some of your cheaper stuff, they're pushing it out the door, which means they're using parts across their entire range on all the trailers. So their boat trailers, for example, might use a normal road-going seal, or they might only pack grease into the bearings themselves without any excess in the hub. Things along those lines, like stuff like Galv fish plates and Galv U-bolts might not be used. And then, of course, after a few years of salt water use, your U-bolts and fish plates, they're looking like they're about to fall off the trailer, and it's just not a good situation, really.
Good to know, Lucas. Very good to know. And next question we wanted to ask you is, obviously, we'll get our boat serviced appropriately every 6 to 12 months, but what can we do sort of in between those times to keep our trailer in good nick? Is it sort of as simple as a bit of a freshwater hose off, or is there a bit more to it?
That's a great question, actually. So I would suggest that for the average punter, I would say before most departures, have a good look at your trailer weights. Most trailers will have the chassis plate on there, which gives you the ATM, which is your aggregate trailer mass. And I would say make sure you don't exceed that, because going overweight, you're going to degrade your grease a lot quicker because the bearings are going to get a lot hotter due to the extra mass on them. And always make sure your weight displacement's correct. You want a lot of ball weight on there to make sure the trailer's not going to sway at speed. Things like wheel nuts and tyre pressures, you should really keep on top of those. And that's something that, it's nice and easy to do. Just chuck a breaker bar or your wheel spanner on there and just have a crack on the wheel nuts and make sure they're nice and tight. Give your bearing free play a check. Grab the top and the bottom of the wheel, or if it's on the ground, just the top of the wheel. Give it a shake to make sure there's not a lot of bearing free play, because that's a good way to indicate, if the bearing's already worn out or if it may need a bit of attention up in a service. And as you said, give it a good hose off after use, just to make sure you don't get any chassis corrosion appearing. And it's a good idea to give the fish plates and the leaf springs a good hosing off as well, because with the leaf springs you can get water trapped in between them. And as that rubs together, it rubs the paint off, and then the only thing left there is a bit of salt water, or even fresh water will eventually cause corrosion. And things like your light, like give it a light check before you head off as well. And if they're not working, the first port of call is probably to give a bit of a WD-40 spray into the plug, just in case there's any corrosion in there or bad contact as well.
Fantastic advice, mate. Thank you very much. And you're not wrong before you head off on a trip, whether it's just down to the ramp or you're towing your boat all the way, across South Australia. It's always worthwhile doing those safety checks before you head off, because nothing worse, like you say, than getting down the road and something going AWOL before you've even left.
Oh, exactly. And it's one of those things. Once you got it down pat, it takes you 2 minutes, but it could save you 2 hours on the side of the road, or worse, a massive headache with the insurance company or similar.
Yeah, good advice there, Lucas. Now, in your journeys as a mobile trailer man, you must have come across some horrible condition trailers. Can you tell us about some of the worst things you've seen?
Oh, I see quite a few boat trailers with the old chalky milkshake inside the hub, that's for sure. So you see a lot of corrosion is probably the main thing. And going back to the U-bolts and fish plates, that's probably the big one, because sometimes you'll come across a U-bolt that's half its original size, and you think, oh, that's just an accident waiting to happen. It's going to snap, So you got to do these inspections from time to time to make sure that the chassis hasn't got corrosion forming or similar. And another classic one is leaf springs seem to come off frequently just because they basically everything rusts down, or you'll reverse it into something and you'll pop a leaf spring out of its mount, and all of a sudden the whole axle's wobbling around. So you see some bloody horrible things, really. But definitely bearing conditions the main one. I come across a lot of wheels that haven't fallen off, but they're wobbling around because the bearing has failed, and you think, well, how long's it been like that? So
it's probably pretty frightening stuff. You don't want to be behind one of those boats that's getting towed down the road with no bearings.
Oh, exactly. And it's hard to blame the owner because, they haven't done their checks, because they think, in their mind, they think, oh, I've bought a trailer. Trailers don't need servicing. Only cars need servicing. And that's sort of the general mentality behind people. But again, I don't blame them, because there's not enough, cultural awareness behind the fact that trailers need safety inspection sort of thing as well.
Absolutely, mate. That's correct. Now, I was going to ask you about brakes. So we've got a braked trailer ourselves, and it is important to look at those discs sometimes, isn't it, to make sure there's a nice shine on it, that they're grabbing effectively when you apply the brakes. Is that something that you come across a lot, that the cables aren't quite tightened up enough or not looked after appropriately? What's the go there?
Definitely. So more often than not, I'll come across brakes where they've run out of adjustment on the adjuster directly behind the override. And that's because when you get a trailer service, we actually adjust the brakes at the brake caliper itself, and we ensure that your pads are to spec and all of that. So what happens is, once those pads start wearing down, the little arm in the caliper has to travel that little bit further, and that's what the slack in the cable takes up. So you'll adjust that winder up, and eventually you'll run out of adjustment, and you'll basically run out of excellent braking performance. So when you get a service done, we adjust it at the start, and then we work our way back, so you have all that adjustment again. And yeah, like you said, it's pretty frequent to see a lot of brakes that aren't even working, and whether they know or not's one thing, but I think a lot of them know the brakes aren't working because they feel it in the car. So
yeah, there's certainly nothing worse than dodgy brakes on a trailer. It's really just a recipe for disaster.
Oh, definitely. And it's good to have that security behind you, knowing that the trailer's looking after itself and you can just look after the car, and that way you're not spending twice as much getting your car brakes changed every year.
Yeah, good call, Lucas. Now, one more thing we wanted to know. What's your background and how did you get into trailer servicing?
That's a really good question. So essentially, I went to uni. I've always been into cars and that. So like most young fellas, love a good car. So went to uni, did enjoy it. So I thought I'll give MTA a crack, which is Motor Trade Association. And didn't like that either, to be honest. So went back to uni and actually did a degree in HR. And that's sort of where my business mentality came from. I always wanted to be my own boss after that. So when COVID hit, I thought, well, it's time to start it. It's time to do my own thing. And my old man always said, well, what about fixing trailers on site? Because in his past, he's always had trailers that have broken down. He's had to get a tow truck or similar to get them somewhere. So, yeah, he actually came up with the idea, and I picked it up and ran with it and said, thanks, mate. I'll go along with that.
So you've been going at this for a couple of years then, Lucas. How's it all going?
Yeah, it's good. It's been busy, actually, which is fantastic. A lot of businesses have got on board because, like we were saying earlier, they don't want to have to pay one of their staff members to take it somewhere and then pick it up again, along with paying for the service itself. So that's probably been the biggest business, is other businesses using me, ones that will have 10, 15 trailers.
Yeah, that's fantastic, mate. That's really good. And, great to hear that the business is going well. And you need to tell us, mate, where can we find you? Do we hit you up on the socials? Where can the listeners get in touch with you, mate?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can find me on Facebook under Adelaide Mobile Trailer Services, or you can give me a call on 0413 329 836. And I'm on Google My Business as well. So if you Google Adelaide Trailer Servicing, I should pop up in probably the top position or similar.
Yeah, beautiful, Lucas. Well, we'll put this episode up shortly, and we'll be sure to tag your Facebook page in it so all our listeners can get in contact to get their boat trailers sorted out.
Sounds fantastic, fellas. I look forward to hearing it.
All right.
I know I hate the sound of my own voice, but that's all right.
All right, Lucas, thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for joining us, and it's a really great concept you got, a great business.
Thank you very much, fellas, and thanks for the opportunity. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, mate. You too. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right, Diz, bloody good to hear from Lucas.
Some great tips from Lucas, Rohdey. Clearly something that a lot of people would not do, I suppose, particularly if maybe you just tow your boat to the local ramp back and forth once every sort of few weeks to a month, and you probably don't think about getting your trailer looked after. What I would say, and this was probably the prompt for us, was trailers that we put a bit of gear in before we head away. There's no question about that. So we load them up a bit. We don't irresponsibly load them up. I'm certainly not suggesting that. But our long trip to Streaky was something that we thought, we want to make sure this trailer's sort of humming nicely. And they did find some of those key things that Lucas pointed out, packing the bearings properly, making sure there's some really good safeguards there, good little, making sure nothing's rusting out or looking like it's about to go. Well worth the money, I'd say, Rohdey.
Yeah, it is, and it's certainly very convenient being able to have it done at home. So I'm certainly looking forward to our next service with Lucas.
Yep, I like that. Me too. We'll definitely book that in for the yearly service, or more frequently if Lucas suggests.
Yes, Diz. All right, let's get into the fishing report. What do you got for us?
Rohdey, salmon trout fishing well from Port Lunga Jetty. I've got a few regulars who come down to the pharmacy and sort of rub it in my face basically when they get out for a midweek fish, and they'll bring in some photos or whatnot of their morning session on the jetty. Some pretty good size ones too.
Yeah, I did see some photos of some good fish floating around.
Yeah, and like I haven't heard any direct reports from anyone who's been down to Waits or Parsons, but definitely that always gets a good rap, and very popular spot for people who like fishing down that way.
And Diz, also for those heading over to the West Coast, the Australian Salmon Comp has another month to run, so that finishes August 31.
Yeah, so a bit of time to go there. If you're planning on heading over that way for a trip, make sure you pack the rods in, get the slugs, get the little metal slugs going, flick a few out in the local beaches there. You'll probably find a patch of them.
You will, Diz. Let's keep moving. What about the barrels? Still going?
Yeah, still going. You don't have to follow many of the charters or, the Portland bait and tackle or whatever it might be to know that they're still getting barrels. Probably not as widely reported as they were for a while there, but they still seem to be getting a few.
So you would say it's the tail end of the season, but they're certainly still getting fish. So if you do want to get out there, get in contact with Port MacDonald Fishing Charters. Jason and Tyson will take you out and give it a red hot crack to put you on the end of the fish.
Yep, they're definitely fantastic operators and a great day out regardless of whether you get fish or not. But still, like you say, a good chance. Tail end of the season, maybe pick your weather, try and get down there midweek if you can, avoid a bit of that boating pressure that might come across on the weekends. So, once in a lifetime fish those. We're yet to crack it, but we've had a few trips down there and they've been great.
And if you do want to know more about catching a barrel at Port Mac, don't listen to us. Get on to episode 60, our last episode, and listen to Jason, who's an expert.
Yeah, Jason knows plenty more about getting on the barrels than we do. But get on to episode 60 and you'll have a good listen about what they get up to down in those parts. Rohdey, winter whiting, no brainer, still going, hot spots.
It's the time of year, Diz. I'm not sure it's been as good a season overall as previous years, or is that just that we haven't been over there as much?
Don't know. We definitely haven't been over there as much. Still see some reports coming through, even metro whiting. And, I always get them after a big blow, so there's been a few windy days down there.
Look, I'd say we're right up there with the better fishermen over on Yorks at catching whiting.
Yeah.
But we're pretty average at metro.
Oh, we're not. We're certainly no experts off metro. But people do well. Some people do get a good feed of fish.
And I'm envious.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to have some spots.
I'd love to, do a
Anyone
little...
got any tips, just throw them our way.
Yeah, we're just not good. We did it for quite a while, Diz, didn't we? In our old boat in particular.
Used to take the tinny down there.
And we would always we'd get one or two whiting, couple of squid. We just could never crack the dozen fish.
No, we couldn't. We had some really good sessions on squid.
Yeah, we did better on the squid than the whiting.
Yeah, some good squid fishing down there, that's for sure. And speaking of squid, some big ones coming from Warina, some big hoods.
Yeah, Diz, they get the big ones. I saw a big one off the bluff down at Victor Harbour.
Yeah. Okay.
And Yorks.
Yeah, Yorks. Some of those hot spots. we're talking Point Riley,
Wool Bay, when the tide's high.
No, that's Port Julia.
Oh, Port Julia. Whoops, sorry, got
Wool
me.
Bay's fine. Wool Bay's a long jetty.
Dizzy once claimed you never miss out on squid at Port Julia, and then we went there and we missed out, and he had about 37 terms and conditions about why we missed out. It was the
lowest tide of the year, and we couldn't even get a lure wet.
It was rubbish.
Good stuff, Rohdey. I think that's plucked the most important things out of any reports or photos or sending in anything we've heard.
Yeah, Diz, make sure you do keep letting us know what you're catching and where you're getting it, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hit us up on the Facebook and the Instagram.
Yeah,
we love to get some live and exclusive reports.
We do, Rohdey. And what we'd also like to touch on before today's episode wraps up is, of course, the tackle item of the week. And this is an interesting one because you can't find it. Well, you can't find this particular tackle item in a tackle store.
No, Diz, it's not where you normally go for your tackle. I nipped down to IKEA.
Wow.
And I bought us 3 new sets of Begg Tunga.
Tell the listeners what a Begg Tunga is.
A Begg Tunga is a pack of 2 chopping boards.
Oh, interesting.
And they're bloody good ones. They're sturdy.
Do you class this as tackle?
Well, how many times we use those crappy, flimsy, stupid, dodgy, bloody filleting boards?
No, I like this. I like having some filleting boards. You'll get some funny looks from your family and friends if you waltz into their kitchen and grab their fancy bloody wood chopping block that they like cutting cheese and stuff, and you're splashing fish guts all over it. So it's always worthwhile having a pack of Berg Tunga in your kit.
They're a nice hard plastic. They've got a little bit of grip on them. They, wash off easily in the salt water.
Yeah, they do. Bit of sand. Just get a bit of sand on there.
Yeah, actually that gets rid of the smell, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the other good thing is there's 2. So there's a big one to do your filleting on.
Yeah.
And then there's a little sort of half-size one that you maybe use for your bait preparation, cut up your pillies, whatever else.
Yeah, you might do that. I mean, a lot of boats these days have bait boards built in, but there are times where you might want just a small bait board on the gunnel or something like that, so you don't, chop up, don't cut your boat, don't wreck your paint, that sort of thing. Might be worthwhile thinking about.
So that's why Begg Tunga is great.
Yes, interesting little piece of tackle item there, Rohdey. But thank you.
Yeah, Diz, I thought it was revolutionary.
Yeah, very interesting. IKEA's chopping boards Berg Tunga sales are going to go through the roof now.
I think it was only $6 per pack.
Wow.
Good price.
Sponsored?
I hope it was $6. That rings a bell.
Post?
All right, Diz, that's about all we got time for. So big shout out to Lucas, who did a great job at talking us through all things trailer maintenance from Adelaide Mobile Trailer Services. And also, Diz, good to discuss the fishing forum from RecFish.
Yeah, thank you, Rohdey. Appreciate your attendance there and the minutes taken. Good for the listeners. But yeah, great episode. Good to hear from Lucas. We'll speak to you next time.
See you guys.
Rohdey and Diz hope you enjoyed today's episode of All the Gear But No Idea. Keep up to date by liking and sharing us on Facebook and Instagram. And you can subscribe on all the major podcast platforms. Until next time, good luck fishing.